Yeah, this webinar is thanks to CAD TESOL. CAD TESOL is California TESOL, which is part of a larger association called TESOL, which is an amazing association supporting teachers and educators in the English as a second language or foreign language realm. It's an international organization, and within the US, each state has their own association. And we are here representing Refugee Concerns Interest Group. We encourage you all to join this amazing organization. Yes, yeah. So we are part of RCIG. And right now, I mean, it's a beautiful Friday afternoon. And around us in this world, there's also a lot of sadness and pain and chaos. And we just want to take a moment to think of those in southeastern Turkey, in Syria, and the neighboring countries. So many people are impacted by the earthquake and everything that has followed. I'm sharing we're going to share a link. If often during these times we wonder what we can do, and sometimes there's stuff we can do and stuff we cannot do. In my introduction, I'll be talking about I co-founded a nonprofit called Globally Connected here in Riverside. Co-founder Dr. Celine Yildiz Nielsen, actually before we started Globally Connected, she was working in southeastern Turkey in Gaziantep in a university, but became very involved with a local refugee camp, and she has continued to do a lot of work in Turkey. And this week, 100% of any donations going to Globally Connected, she will make sure the money gets to the people in southeastern Turkey. And they're also involved in supporting a lot of Syrian refugees that live in that area. So if you have not contributed, and if this is something that you can, this speaks to you, I can just say I trust that I know that 100% of this money is going to be going to recovery efforts. This is something you can share with your friends. It's globallyconnected.org.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks. So I'd like to start by introducing ourselves. There are three of us who are part of RCIG. As I said, I co-founded Globally Connected. It's a local nonprofit with the mission to promote community building in order to support refugees. And in that organization, I started an ESL class in 2015, and the majority of my students have been Afghan women. Working with these Afghan women, I soon learned that they all had a lot of trauma that was impacting their physical health and really sometimes their ability to show up and be focused and learning in class. And from that, I have done a lot of research myself around trauma and trauma-informed teaching, and started a new initiative called Transformational Learning Communities, which I provide training for teachers or anyone in the education field around trauma-informed care. And actually, I'm going to take the opportunity to invite Anne to introduce herself. It'll be Tally and myself doing this presentation today, but Anne is also part of our group.
Hi, guys. Welcome. Glad to see everyone this afternoon. I'm here to learn about self-care. I'm so grateful for the topic. Thank you, guys.
And Tally?
Hi, I'm Tally Crusoe. I'm currently pursuing my master's in TESOL at University of San Francisco. I tutor some students over in Syria and also am working with local populations that were impacted by the situation in Afghanistan. I'm really excited to go on this journey with you all today, and I'd like to also invite you all in the Zoom chat to write a little bit about yourself. We can keep it short and sweet. Or your role with a descriptor. So if I were to choose one for myself, it would be fun-loving facilitator. So just if you can, if you're driving or if you're like, in a situation where you shouldn't be typing, please do not type. It's totally okay. This is just a little easy way for us to get to know each other.
Nice. So Anne is PhD student at Viola. We have Lindsay, who's a curious university admin. Love it. Tatiana, Portuguese language teacher and currently enrolled in the TESOL program at UC.
Berkeley Extension.
Yep, extension, wonderful. Christine, oh, this is so wonderful. So this is like, students, teachers, administrators, we all get to take care of ourselves. Christy, non-credit ESL faculty at community college, excited because I'm on sabbatical. So I have tons of time to learn and maybe to take care of yourself. And it's Kira, I hope. I'm currently a multitasking educator. Yeah, multitasking. Aren't we all? Wendy, student of MA TESOL at Viola. So we have some of Anne's peers here. Viola teaching in Ecuador, inquisitive and tenacious. I love it.
Do we get Ramon? Lifelong learner, currently TEFL, hold on. This is Papanoi, advisor for Fulbright in Taiwan. Very nice.
Wonderful. Jadine, TESOL professor, teacher trainer using theater techniques. And Jadine, I think this is a topic that's very near and dear to your heart as well. Because I love it that as a professor, it seems like you're really concerned about social, emotional learning and caring for your students who hopefully care for themselves and their students in the future. Chill like a teacher. Okay, here we are. We're chilling on a Friday afternoon. Okay. Oh, Pat. All right. Pat, credential recently non-credit ESL instructor, excited to return to action. Woohoo! Okay, we'll see you at TESOL.
Looks like we also have Shaw, teach ESL for a couple of community colleges here in San Diego and private language school. No words for myself right now other than hungry. Sorry. No, please.
Yeah, when basic needs are not met, it's hard to move on, right? Maslow's hierarchy.
So feel free if you haven't chatted something, you can always chat later. We'll be able to read it in the background, but we'll keep moving so we'll get some chance to go through the interactive portions of the webinar here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Welcome. There. So objectives of this session, hopefully that we can recognize stress and trauma and how it impacts our lives, right? A big part of everything is self-awareness. The second is that there are a couple of techniques, methods that you can walk away with that you can immediately, use in your life. You want this to be practical, easy, right? Easy in the best way, right? That it's something that we can apply. Okay. So I know this is about self-care. This is I know you see this word stress. Ugh, when you think of stress, what comes to mind? I don't know if you just want to kind of chat, put in the chat. Honestly, if you want to speak out, having too many worries. Thanks, Christine. Stress. What do you think of when you think of stress? Uncertainty and confusion, feeling overwhelmed, taking my toddler to the dentist today. Oh, and yeah, I remember things that are hard, overwhelmed, overworked.
I think of my students, the adults having to work in addition to taking class.
Yeah, juggling too many responsibilities, headache, too many things to do. And this is a big part of so many of our lives today, right? We have so many responsibilities, so many things to think about. Stress, too many things going on. Before, I think somebody said stretched. Second. Am I missing anything? Stretched thin, exhaustion, yes. Right, so now, I think this is when we think, stressed, right? Think, when was the last time you were stressed? So just think about this. Think about the last time you were stressed. It doesn't have to be a big stress. I mean, I can think of something that stressed me out this morning, just not long ago. I mean, I will even say, like, this, as much as I'm excited about this session, it's a little stressful, right? Hopefully, when we do something like this, we want to do a good job. Think about the last time you're stressed. Just take a minute. Now I want you to think about where you are feeling it in your body, or where you felt it in your body. And if you're comfortable, put your, so Tatiana, like, put your, hand on your heart if that's where you felt it, right? And I'm guessing that was, if it was stress, maybe not open-hearted feeling, but a tightness. Neck, right? Christy's neck, head, jaw. We don't always even realize our jaw, right? For some people, it leads to headaches. College, I used to feel it in my neck. Yes, so some of you taking painkillers, it's like it just got so bad. For me, is my gut. Right? I get a tightness in my stomach. Chest and stomach. Sometimes it's in my chest. And saying that, so sometimes it's just taking that time to be aware. Because back of my neck. So, this is like all like self-awareness coming to turn. Okay, this is where I'm feeling it. This is where I'm carrying it. That's the first step, as opposed to what do we often do, and what do we sometimes feel like we have to do? Just keep moving on, right? We just push through the stress and where we're holding in our body and not really sitting with it. So sitting with that stress, sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to sit with this, right? It's painful. But sometimes it's the best thing we can do is to, first step, just to like feel it in our body. Let's kind of move on. We'll kind of continue talking about this kind of the body awareness as we move forward, talking about stress and trauma.
Yeah, so it's good to remember that stress is really any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. I think a lot of times we think of stress as being negative, but it's also good to think about what Sherry had mentioned earlier, that, something like a new job could be stressful. You get that productive energy, the focus, the motivation that comes along with it. And it's really because your body is trying to respond to something that requires attention or action. So it's really, those same things that make you super focused can actually also drain you. So then when you think about it from the positive to the toxic levels, when it gets down to that toxic level, it's really where you're feeling like unable to meet your basic needs, or maybe you've got a health problem at this point, where you might be feeling there's no actionable solutions, too many unknowns, multiple stressors at one time. And so that's what we really want to do, is not just to identify stress, but what type of stress is it? Is it temporary? Is it ongoing? How intense is it? How is it impacting how you show up? So it really can range from positive to toxic. And it is also very much related to how your body and mind's readiness is to support such loads. So, we want to keep that top of mind. Stress is not inherently bad, but it is your body's reaction to needing to address something. So now that we've talked a little bit about stress, I want to understand, where your mind's at when you're thinking about trauma. What comes to mind when you think of the word trauma?
Again, feel free to put it in the chat, or, we're a small enough group if you want to just, unmute and share long-lasting effects, lasting impact. Right, the pain that takes a while to go away. It's physical.
Rewiring of the brain. Yep. Past hurts from others and different experiences, something damaging to your soul. A shocking experience that can stay with us for a while. It's great.
Yeah, definitely, it's all these things. So I'm just going to share some definitions. The first is from Dr. Gabor Mate, and at the end we do have resources, and I've shared one of his books. It's like what many of you said. One of his quotes is, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you. And I saw that a lot from what you were sharing, what trauma is, right? This is not just what happened to you. It's like, it's really what even like we hold on to. Another one of the definitions, what happens to a person where there's either too much too soon. And I know working with the Afghan families here, what happened when the Taliban took over, it was, and they were rushing to get out of that country. How traumatic, right? That was so much so soon, right? It was overnight. They were like leaving their homes, their families, everything. Too much for too long. I mean, that's, again, if we know for people who have lived in a war-torn country. Again, I think of Afghanistan. I think of, Syrians. Now what the Ukrainians are going through. It's a child that goes through years of abuse, all these things. Or again, not enough for too long is perhaps someone that's, we often think of children where there's neglect, where people are isolated. It can be very traumatizing. Deb Dana is someone who does a lot of work around the polyvagal theory, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. What she talks about is that trauma creates an autonomic demand that shapes the system away from connection to protection. And this is really key in understanding trauma, right? It's very difficult to connect, to get out of survival mode when we are in that protection mode, right? So it kind of often stays with a person. So I'm not sure, there are many, we can look at trauma in different ways. We can look at how it impacts the brain and thinking. For me, the polyvagal theory has been very helpful. It helps us understand the autonomic nervous system. This came from Dr. Stephen Porges. And as you see here, it's understanding of how trauma impacts our autonomic nervous system. So here on the side, there's this picture of our nervous system. And if we go to the bottom of this ladder, the dorsal ventral, this is the old, and so just to go back, poly meaning many, vagals wandering. So we have this autonomic nervous system that's connecting our whole body. The dorsal vagal, this is like 500 million years old. This is survival. This is if you imagine that lizard frozen, right? Like just incapable of moving. To give an example of this whole thing, imagine we're going out for a hike and I'm hiking. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful day. I'm at the top of the ladder. I'm at ventral. I feel connected. This world is beautiful. I'm taking it in. Maybe I'm chatting with a friend or I see somebody coming. I'm going to say hello. I'm open. I'm relaxed. I'm hopeful. This is the ventral. Now, we've often heard of the sympathetic, the fight or flight. Now, a wild cat jumps out at me. I'm going to possibly go into fight or flight. I'm going to fight that animal off, or I'm going to run for it. All right. Or the dorsals, when I kind of play possum, I freeze. All right. So there are these situations where somebody has been in a situation where you're like, why didn't you fight back? Right? Why didn't you do something? They froze. It's not that they thought, what should I do? I'm not going to move. It's in their body. They just freeze. So the dorsal, that's an old archaic part of our system. Sympathetic's like 400 million years old, and this ventral is like 200 million years old. This is like a newer sense. So what in life, we are going back and forth between these all the time. And it's not a bad thing. The resiliency in a person is when they're able to get back into that ventral, when they go into sympathetic or dorsal, but they can come back. And so this is what we're always, instilling in ourselves and, those around us. So
And Sherry,
I
remember there was something that you had mentioned about the sympathetic stage that I thought was really helpful. And it's, the way that it comes out in our day-to-day, it could be like you snap at somebody. It's not necessarily just a fight or flight against a wildcat, kind of situation, but it's also just like, you're not shut down and just like, never mind, I'm not engaging with the world, but you just have this like, defense mechanism that kind of kicks in. And I thought that was really helpful because that really connects to, myself and, what happens around me. So hopefully others can also kind of make that mental map as well.
100%. And we all have patterns, right? So Some of us are the ones that are easily, or we know those people in our lives that are very defensive and they fight back, argumentative, right? Very easily. There are those who kind of recoil and just, I'm not going to lie. I'm that person in the past. I've always been kind of, let me just avoid conflict or trauma. And these are all kind of natural. And it's like, there's healthy limits to all these things. Often, if you are working with populations, in our case here with refugees, we maybe could be paying more. We often see those students who are the argumentative ones, who are the ones that kind of, or the kids that are behavioral, we'll say problems. But sometimes it's those who have sort of a low affect, who are really withdrawn, who are not engaged, that are potentially in this dorsal, this shutdown, that we really need to be in the lookout for and maybe help them find a voice and potentially, if need be, find some, additional support outside the classroom. So just keeping in mind kind of these kind of for yourself and for those people in your lives. Is there any questions with regards to this? And just before we move on, I don't know if there's any comments, questions. Okay.
And like Sherry said, feel free to unmute as well. I know we're trying to manage time through the chat function, but it's also, we're very flexible. So if you would prefer to unmute and bring something up, feel free.
Thanks.
Chrissy says she recognizes all these descriptors of reactions. Right.
So this is a really important thing, is that we often react, right? Because how do we not, we're like, how dare they say this? Or why aren't they talking to me? Or whatever. Not taking things personally. This is something we all get to learn. It's not about us for the most part, right? So it's about whatever they're going through. So it's just providing them that space and not taking it on into our own kind of energy, and just, to protect ourselves emotionally. Thank you. Okay. So switching gears, what comes to mind when you think of self-care? Time.
Tatiana says time. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Favorite TV shows or reading a book? Chrissy likes time on her own. Yeah, taking time for myself.
Anything you do specifically when you take time for yourself or time alone?
Laying down, just relaxing, thinking inwardly, taking a hike, a cup of tea, get a massage.
Those all sound great.
Yeah. So self-care, and a lot of this sounds so cliched, right? We don't want to say it's like self-care is not selfish, but it's so true. And as students, as educators, being in this field, being in our demanding time, really, we're living through a demanding time. Self-care is imperative so that we really can show up for our loved ones, our family, our friends, for our students, for our peers. And really, self-care is the antidote to stress and trauma, right? This is what really is what we need to help manage the stress and trauma that we have in our lives.
Awesome. So, self-care activities, big and small, really help us move along the day as we move with resiliency. So in the Zoom chat, I'd like you to share with us some of the ways that you currently recharge your battery. And I'm probably going to ask Sherry to shout out a couple of the ones that we had from before, and I'm going to put them into little buckets that we'll have down here on the bottom.
Yeah, so we're going to fill up our battery, and we're going to share some of what you've already shared. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so watching my favorite TV show.
All right. Oops. Oh, sorry. Had to go into edit mode here. Okay.
Reading a book. hiking, time on my own, JD, when you say treating myself, anything specific?
For me, it's taking a massage is my monthly treat
Mm,
that I give to myself.
nice.
Taking a moment to take a nap. Just
Mhm.
yeah, like doing something that I enjoy.
Nice. Massage. Jamie said thinking inwardly. And also mentioned taking a trip. Wendy enjoys a good cup of tea. Pat is more of a coffee drinker. I'm with you, Pat. Pat also talked about exercise. Oh, I like this. Weekly taco night. So, Pat, with the taco night, is that something you do with certain people, like the same people each week?
Yes, it's we all exercise together, and then after we exercise, we drive around all around LA, East LA, Southern California. We've even gone down to Carson for a taco. But it's just
Nice.
something that, it's I see it as a social thing and me getting away from my responsibilities at home. Because I have a huge I'm a caretaker of my mom. And so at least I get that time for myself.
Nice. Nice. Pat also talked about window shopping. Hands, I want to do all these things. Christy, positive self-talk. Also going out in nature. I don't know if you've included, yeah, you've got sleeping. Jamie's catching up with friends. Getting something delicious to eat, enjoying food. I think you've got petting animals, yes. Cuddling with my dog. I love to cuddle with my dog. And Ramon, spiritual and food fasting. So different kinds of fasting.
Got quite the list. This is awesome.
Yeah. I just joined a dance class for like a beginner adult, and I loved it first for the exercise, but the women in this class, it's like such a positive like environment. I love it for like, because it's like it's exercise, it's the social, it's out of my head. I'm like trying to remember these little routines. Christine's got singing while playing piano.
I was just about to say singing. This is great. Singing, playing piano. I like, I know this is horrible for the environment, but there's a really great Brazilian restaurant that I like that's 40 minutes from here. And so I'll go into the car and like blast music and scream in Portuguese. So I love studying Portuguese. So I'll like do that on my own so no one else has to hear it because my voice is awful. But it's a really great way to relax and also practice another language.
Nice. Wow, so I see the battery's charging.
Yeah. So this is great. I hope that we get a chance to kind of like maybe get inspired from one another in these various ways that we are currently recharging our batteries and kind of take this forward into an additional analogy that we'll kind of continue on in a couple slides.
Yeah,
Can
just
I
with the,
add something quickly?
yeah.
Just like with the recharge thing, one of the things that stands out to me and I talk about with my students is that when we charge our own phone batteries, we have to put them on either all night or like leave them for a long time so they can get that full charge. If you only put your battery, like a phone on charge for 5 minutes, you're going to get like 20%. So I think like the same applies to us is we need to make sure we're allowing ourselves to have a full reset, like a full charge, however that might reflect for us as well. So that's just something that I thought was interesting with the recharge your battery analysis.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks, Jean. And just here, you see we kind of have like Tally was filling in 4 areas. So the first one's more around where you're thinking like health, fitness, so like hiking, any kind of dancing, exercise, to kind of get that part in, healthy eating. And the next one was a little more reflective. So time on my own, petting my animal, all these things like resting, positive self-talk. The next one was more around community, right? And kind of that, what we get when we have like a weekly taco night and going, driving around with our friends and exercising with them, what we get from that. And then the other one was kind of more like the other bucket. But just when you're thinking of self-care, like, it's totally individual, but you look at the different areas. So there's, emotional and physical and spiritual, all these aspects that fuel us.
All right, thank you all. Thanks for all contributing here. So now that we've talked a little bit about the importance of self-care as a means to reduce stress, let's talk about 4 self-care techniques and ways of being. So we're going to go through and have some time to reflect and practice some of these. So creating healthy boundaries, practicing techniques for grounding and calming, identifying pockets of joy, and then the last, but definitely not the least, which is connect and uplift. So keep in mind that today our goal is to walk away with 1 to 2 methods to put into practice, something you can incorporate into your day. It's important to remember that it's not just about taking a full day off and going to the spa, but even just little things that you can do throughout your day, which are more achievable or tend to be, something that we overlook, but can actually have more accretive value, as that is easier to do than trying to find a whole day off to yourself sometimes. So actually funny that Jadine had mentioned about cell phone charging. So I took a little snapshot of my portable battery. This thing is insane. It can actually charge up my laptop from 0 to full. But like she had mentioned, it itself needs to be charged. So one of the analogies that I do think about is just, when I'm not feeling like I'm my whole self, I might say, I'm not 100% right now. I'm drained. Sorry, I can't make it. That's really the last thing that I want to do, because none of us want to have to back down from a commitment or not be at our best. So one way we can have more control over that is really, not overcommitting as much, which really requires setting boundaries. So I know the word boundaries can be a little off-putting for people. So the way that I like to think of it is that boundaries are really just outward communication of internal priorities. So it really means that you need to dig into what the root of your priorities is. And that can change over time. So don't feel like you have to have like a 1 through 5, 1 through 10, 1 through 100 list of priorities that's just like written in stone. That's not how life goes, obviously. So give yourself that grace to, evolve and change as needed. So I kind of ran into this very issue recently due to my new class and work schedule. And I ended up, trying to figure out, what volunteer organizations should I be working with? I was waking up at 5 a.m. to do this one tutoring session with a student in Syria, but I had actually just, come off from a late night at school, and then I'd also have to go to work after 2 hours of tutoring. And I was like, this is too much, so like really visiting, like, why am I doing this? It's like, okay, well, I want to be able to impact students in Syria. So I started looking stuff up, and I'm like, wow, there's actually this organization where I can review personal statements and CVs, and I can do this asynchronously. Like the root of what I'm trying to do is still there. So I finished up my semester doing kind of doing the Zoom 5:30 to 7:30 meetings into this other thing. And I evolved it. Like my priorities are still kind of to be able to help the students, but the way that shows up is different. And that allowed me to be able to show up more fully at work. It allowed me to be less drained for school and also spend time with my dog and my husband. So a lot of things that kind of refuel me, I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to do at the time because I was kind of like getting into this routine that made it really difficult for me to refuel. So I want everyone to kind of think of, if you can write down a list of maybe 4 to 6 activities or commitments that involve some level of time for you. It could be time, it could be energy, maybe it's money, just 4 to 6 items there. And then from there, put a check mark next to your top 3 most important. And, importance is something that's different for each person. So some ways to look at this might be, is it something that there's some reciprocal value, something where you're providing something and you're also getting something back. So maybe you're learning something new or getting healthier or something like that. Maybe it's an intersection of your skills for maximum impact. Maybe it's something that doesn't require you a lot of effort, but gives a big return because you've got specialty in this. Or maybe it's just fulfilling in some other way, so write down those activities and really think about what are your top 3 most important. And you don't have to think through the rest of it right now, but I do encourage you to come back to this list and think, if I have not reviewed my priorities in a while and I'm still, kind of charging forward with all the commitments that I made, is there a way to be able to, communicate those to people that, you've committed to, and maybe evolve them into something that is better fit for your life currently. And don't be afraid to do that because like I have this little tip on the bottom, a planned no is typically better than an unsure yes, right? You want to make sure that people around you that are, relying on you for something also know that they're not, over tapping you for something, so definitely keep that in mind. So yeah, I would say, whatever remains, like evaluating your priorities internally really is that first step to setting clear expectations. It's very difficult to set a boundary or set an expectation with others if you yourself haven't really taken that time to figure out what it is that you're trying to do. So the visual here is really just meant to think about, like, how many things am I trying to charge up here? Like, there's enough ports for 2. How many things do I think I could actually do at once? We ourselves are also kind of similar to batteries in that way, where there is not infinite amount of power. You're not plugging into the wall. You're plugging into a battery that needs to get recharged itself. So let's make sure that we revisit what that looks like in real life based on the priorities that we have.
Yeah, and what Tally's asked you to do, we don't really have the time here to maybe hear your responses. This is really for you, to follow up maybe after this session. But for me, one thing is just to, with boundaries, before we say yes to a request, we can take a minute. We can take a day sometimes, we can take a week to get back to someone, all right? I think I was that person before. I would just be like, yeah, sure, of course. It was, often some of us are those pleasers. We are just like, in this field, we're often that kind of a person anyway. We want to help people, we're givers, but setting boundaries is really crucial. With the volunteers with Locally Connected, I was always asking them, like, what is it you really want to do? And what do you really love doing? Because you're volunteering, right? Like, okay, sometimes there's an emergency, but really, what is an emergency, and really what's going to serve you, and why are you saying yes to something? I mean, there are certain things in life we have to do. There are many, many things we don't have to do. So just being mindful and giving yourself some time and just telling a person, you know what, I can get back to you on that. I'll let you know tomorrow, or whatever that may be. Any comments or anything before we move forward? Okay. So I want to look at some techniques for grounding and calming. I don't know if you can show kind of with a show of hands if anyone's familiar with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, somebody's putting their hand up, I think. No. I don't know. Who is familiar with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique? I know Christy is. Lindsay is. Okay, let's just take a minute. So with grounding and kind of calming, we're off and I think some people here talked about meditating or doing some kind of spiritual cleanse. And meditation can be really wonderful, or it can be really daunting, right? Because we have this sense that, oh, like we need to come to this like space of not thinking and being open. And for somebody who maybe doesn't meditate regularly, and you say, oh, calm down, just meditate, that can make them more anxious. What we can do is bring somebody to the moment. And so this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 can do that. So just to kind of walk you through it, maybe some of you know this, but I just want you right now to look around your space and just 5 things that you see. You can say them out loud, you can say them to yourself, 5 things you see. I'm going to give you a minute to do this. Okay, now 4 things you can feel. And we think, well, what? It doesn't mean you have to reach out and touch things. You can, but how does the fabric in your top feel against your skin? Can you feel your hair on your shoulders? Can you feel maybe a breeze or heat or coolness in the air against your skin? Maybe your shoes are a little too tight. Like, what is it that you're feeling? 3 things that you hear. I made sure my house was pretty quiet, but I can hear traffic off in the distance. What are 3 things that you hear? What are 2 things that you smell? And 1 thing that you taste? So the idea with this 5, how do people feel? And I kind of rushed through this maybe a little bit, but kind of how do you feel after doing an activity like that? More calm?
You focus on something else.
Focusing on something else, yeah, clear. There's a lot of chatter, more able to focus. There's a lot of chatter and thoughts going through our mind all the time, right? Present. So someone who, if you're overly stressed, or if you're someone who's experienced trauma, sometimes doing other kinds of meditative or like calming activities may have the opposite effect. It may make you feel more anxious. So sometimes it's just grounding, just bringing you to the present moment, right? Takes me out of tunnel vision. Yeah, it's like just bringing us to now. Okay. The next one is breath work. With breath work, I invite you to close your eyes, but you don't need to. This is up to you. You can just maybe even gaze downward. And with this one, we're going to breathe in for 4. We're going to hold the breath for 7, and we're going to exhale for 8. If you can exhale and like kind of push it through like the sound of the ocean, great. Or if you just want to exhale, let the air out of your mouth, that's great too. Let me just use it. Yeah, so let's just take a moment, kind of get your feet grounded if you can, or depending where you're sitting, your feet on the ground, or sit crisscross applesauce, kind of your spine erect, your shoulders relaxed, and your hands in your lap, unless you're driving, of course. Sit here and let's breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's breathe in again through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. 7, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's take one more breath in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5. And exhale for 8. And it would be nice to continue breathing. When you're ready, if you want to open your eyes slowly and back to our group. And again, if you'd like to share how you're feeling, so relaxing. Yeah. There are many different kinds of breathing techniques. This idea of breathing out longer, it actually, they call it ventral breathing. And if you remember, we talked about the polyvagal theory. It's kind of like massages this ventral nerve. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, so there are many, I mean, so this idea of like, yeah, breathing out longer really helps calm our autonomic nervous system, right? So this is really calming, really helps an individual. At the end, we also share resources for free meditation apps if you want to go to different meditation apps. The third technique we're going to look at is the butterfly hug. This is something we, just to share with the Afghan women in my class, we had a psychologist coming, a psychiatrist coming a number of years back, teaching techniques. And then during Zoom, another psychologist was joining us and she taught us the butterfly hug. You can do this in different ways, but if you want to take your hands, kind of cross them over, and then you kind of interlink your thumbs, and then you put them on your chest, or other people have it on your shoulders, whatever feels more comfortable to you. And you just pat, if you can see my hands, back and forth, back and forth. And there's something about doing the left to the right with the opposite hands that's very calming for the brain. It does something, it actually helps rewire the brain. So doing this, I will say last week, I used this for myself. I was having a day with my teenage daughter and I was feeling very anxious and I felt it, my chest was tightening, my stomach was tightening. And so I actually asked myself, what do I need right now? And I kind of needed like a hug. So I hugged myself, right? So you can actually, even hugging yourself is great, but this, I've done it with the students many times and it really helps calm a person down, grounds them. All right. So again, could be shoulders, whatever. And even like talk about doing like different fingers, all these things. Again, it's something bringing us into the moment, whatever feels good for you. Again, at the end in the resource, we're sharing a video of the butterfly hug and kind of a further explanation of kind of how it helps calm us. We don't have a lot of time, but anyone wants to share anything else they do that helps them, that's kind of like a grounding or a calming technique. Yeah, Tatiana?
So I learned once, I haven't done it in a long time, but I learned tapping.
Yes.
I should go back to it.
Right, so it's something called the tapping solution, if you look it up. And this is more, it's talking about going to different places and you actually say certain things and it releases, and there's like, you go under the arm. But if you go look up Tatiana, it's very powerful. Actually, next Friday, I'm going to a workshop on tapping because it is, when I'll say like, when I lost my mom and I was really going through a lot of grief, I went to an acupuncturist, and before I even got to acupuncture, he tapped with me, and I just released a lot of pent up emotions inside. Tapping is very effective. So the tapping solution, it's called. Stretching. Basil van der Kolk, one of the leading experts in trauma, talks about even like yoga is one of the most effective ways of, and I don't want to say like this sounds such a big thing, but it's very helpful in releasing stress and trauma because we hold it in our bodies. And with yoga, there's breath work and there's moving and yeah, moving through the body. So definitely. Okay. I think we better move on because we're running out of time. Sorry. Okay. The next one, it's a fun one. Identify pockets of joy. So I'm just going to share what pocket of joy is. I don't know if you recognize in the photo, dolma, stuffed grape leaves. Well, a friend of mine was over last summer and I made a lunch. We were eating outside. And one of the things on the table was like out of Trader Joe's, I like emptied out my dolmas and she bit into it. And she was like, what is this pocket of joy? I was like, I love this. What pocket of joy? I'm like, I've never heard that before. So we'd always, after that, we'd always talk about pockets of joy. And then she shared another later time that, oh, it's actually in Taiwan, they talk about pockets of joy, just those little things, those little bits of joy you find in our day, right? So often we talk about self-care or being happy, we think about taking a trip, doing great things. But identifying like these pockets of joy in our days, it's powerful. So I'll share one of my pockets of joy is I drive my daughter to high school in the morning. We pass by an elementary school and the crossing guard every single morning waves to us. And, you know, getting to my daughter to school is not always easy to get her up and out, but there's something about that woman waving to me that I'm just like, I don't know, it just like brings me so much joy. So saying that, identifying it is what it is, right? Because often there's so many wonderful things in our day that we kind of, it kind of lose sight of it, or we don't really like take it in. So one way to really take it in is through gratitude. And with gratitude, you know, when we, just, I can encourage you, but like how we wake up in the morning has a profound effect on our day. So when we wake up I used to turn to my phone, check all my messages. Now, if I'm in a rush, I will just go, okay, what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? And I'll just go through, right? It's kind of, some people will say a prayer, something to set your day set your kind of your mood for the day. Better yet, when I have time, I have a gratitude journal. And so it's just, what am I looking forward to today? Where am I going to find time to be, grateful or to, kind of do self-care? And at the end of the day, it's, what were some great things that happened today? And often, I'll say before, I would be like, oh, whatever that one thing was, or two or three things in the day that set me off, I'd be thinking about that. But if I do gratitude, I'm like, oh my gosh, look what that happened, or this happened. How amazing is that? So I just encourage you, to find gratitude when you can. As it says, gratitude is a heartfelt love note to the life we already have. So, we can wish and hope, and of course we want to set goals and have intentions for our life, but sometimes just being grateful for what we have is immense. So because of time, I'll just, encourage you to think of the pockets of joy in your life.
Thanks, Sherry. This last one might take a little time, but it's something that I highly encourage you to do, even if you just take 5 minutes out of the day, maybe right after this session. But connecting and uplifting, really writing down the names of 5 people that you trust. And it doesn't have to be one for each of these bullet points, but these are some kind of like memory joggers, things that might help you find, who's a person who's gives you great advice. I have one of my friends who's, on a completely different time zone. We're always WhatsApping one another, but like I really rely on her to give me great like career advice, and she does the same thing with me. Who makes you laugh? Who lets you cry or gives you a safe space to really like express all the things that are going on. Like some people are great listeners. Not all friends or family members or community members are the right person for each of these. So you can have different people for each of these, or if you gravitate towards one way of connecting versus another, there's no wrong way to do this, but it's really important to have, also people that recognize your strengths. Sometimes, that you like doing something, you don't necessarily know that you are good at it, or you might not recognize that in a way that kind of propels you forward. So having people in your life to kind of encourage you also and support your goals, your interests, your endeavors. I'm in the middle of a career switch right now, and the one of my top five. She's someone that like was the first one I vocalized my desire to do a career switch, and she was 100% behind me. And that was huge because, without actually reaching out to that person, who knows how long I would have taken to like internally commit, because it's a really big deal for me. So, I really highly recommend each of you to, write down the names of 5 people that you trust, that you would connect to one of them, maybe just today. It's easier to say, oh, I'll do it like this weekend, or I'll do it next week or something. But, we have phones. You can do a quick text or a quick message and just check in with that person, because you never know, the connection is both ways. It's not just when you need someone. You never know when someone else is looking to, reach out to you as well. So making that connection and lifting one another up, it's never too late. It's always a good time, even if someone doesn't have the time to kind of talk at length. Even just the initial connection is a good place to start. So I really highly recommend that you try this out today.
Wow, it's 1:30. I can't believe it. I'll just share Rumi's quote. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world, but today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. So we just want to thank you for joining us today. We hope that there'll be bits of inspiration to kind of get you thinking. Make sure you're taking good care of yourself. Here we've shared resources. We can send this in a link as a follow-up. I'm happy to stay on for for an extended period of time. If anyone wants to stay on, we can carry on the conversation. Is there anything anyone wants to share? Anything that you're going to do for yourself today or this weekend?
Tatiana has her hand up.
Yes, Tatiana.
Yes, I was going to say, this is another thing I have to go back to, Qigong. I don't know if you guys have done it. It is really wonderful. It has a lot to do, it's like Tai Chi, not quite, it's a different version. It also has to do with, a little bit of a mentalization, like a meditation kind of thing, but with some of the moves of Tai Chi. Look it up. It's to me, it was very relaxing. It really worked for the time I was doing it. And it's one of the things that I would recommend along with those that you suggested. Thank you, by the way, for all of this. Very, very important.
Thank you. Right. So it's like, whatever. Yeah. Sometimes we did something in the past that we kind of forget about, and you're like, oh, it made me feel so great at the time. So if you can go back and join. For me, it was like dance. I just went back to it recently. I'm so happy. What sparks joy in you? So that's something we get to remind ourselves all the time. What is it that sparks joy in us? Like, oh gosh, I've been out in my yard working in my yard, but it makes me feel so good when I do it. I get to do more of that. So again, whatever is like bite-sized, that's manageable, that we can fit into what we're already doing in our lives, right? When you're taking a walk, take in the beauty around you rather than, oh, let me take this time to like go through everything that I need to think about. Okay, sometimes we need to do that. Other times, just enjoy, take in the sights and the sounds, go through the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as you're taking a walk. Oh, Tatiana's sharing information. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Well, yes, we'll add the link to the presentation. Thank you all. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you again. Again, we encourage you to join Kat Teasel. And oh, sorry, Tatiana has her hand up.
Can I ask one more thing, Sherry? You mentioned about the tapping.
Yes.
event you're gonna, is that something open to the public, you know? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, it's local. I live in Riverside.
I
Not
see.
sure. And it's not right here. Where is it? I can, if you want to follow up, because
I
I
will.
sent an email, I'll share it with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to learn how to. I've done it a couple times, but there's a lot of things to take in mind to kind of remember. So I want to take a workshop. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. So, Christy, next webinar, any topics that you would like for us to cover?
Well, if you learn about that tapping, you could then teach us.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay,
That's a
okay.
good one.
Yeah. Okay, I will try to take it in enough that I'll be able to teach it. Yeah. Tapping is, it's all about like releasing, right? Because or at least I know for myself, in the past I would just like hold in whatever it was, right? And it freaking builds up, right? So and some people it means they're gonna lash out at others. For me, instead, I'm just gonna get anxious and go back and just kind of continue to ruminate over it. So whatever we can do to freaking release, do it. So for me, it's dancing helps me, talking to friends, moving, yeah, crying, laughing, all these good things in life. So making sure that we have the space and the time to do that. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Great weekend.
Thanks,
too.
you too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you.
All right, let me stop recording here.